All right, so we are going to get started. First of all, we're here to talk about expanding our photography businesses. If you're like me, you have had clients, and those clients come and go. Some clients are revisit from time to time, depending on the type of business, and we end up chasing bookings quite often, which leads to having a business that we enjoy, but a business that can be often not as stable as a typical 9 to 5 job or a typical job that we would have. And so photography for a lot of people ends up being something that they do on the side and never ends up becoming a business that they're able to do full time. And that was definitely me. There were times where photography was doing really well for me, like around the time that I got started. I started shooting weddings, and I had a whole bunch of weddings booked going into the financial housing crisis market in the United States in 2008, and lost some of those weddings because some people had to scale things back due to financial problems. And that was my first look with photography at the possibility of things changing. And from there on, photography budgets weren't as good as they were, and so things changed. But because of having photographed a conference, that conference gave me the opportunity to do more business and more work with them, which was, again, a client, but it was recurring business because they had different events every year and they had me out to those different events. But then COVID hit and it disrupted that business because I wasn't traveling. They weren't doing in-person events anymore, and we ended up having problems there. So once again, what was working for me for photography got disrupted. And around that time, I was capturing some content for a few clients here and there. It was not very consistent. It was, a couple $100 here, a couple $100 there for a few photos of maybe some products or something like that. But people were really starting to lean into social media and getting their products out there in different ways other than just having them listed on their website or waiting until somebody walked into their store or something like that. And that's when I realized that people need ongoing content for their business. And especially in a world where we have a multitude of options, attention spans are not even measurable anymore. People don't remember who they worked with last time. They're back to Google searching. And so it takes keeping people up to date with what's new. And we're very visual people, so photography and video become a natural way of communicating in a busy world where there's just too many things going on, and it's too hard for us to maintain that top of mind awareness by just sending out a text-based email or posting a text-based update to social media or something like that. So for me, my real eye-opening moment was when that first client that I'd been doing some ongoing work for said, we want to do more. We want to really push hard. And I thought, well, if I'm going to be available for you, which my schedule's kind of all over the place, if I'm going to be able to mark time out for you guys, then we need to be in some sort of an agreement where I'm giving you a certain amount of time per month and you're giving me a certain amount of work per month. And they agreed to that and liked those terms. And for several years, I was able to create ongoing content for them. So I didn't really give any examples of that in the video that I put online. Let me see if I can just show you some examples of some of that work. It was product photography, and it started out, just being photos of products, but then we wanted things to be a little bit more exciting and more interesting to look at. And so we started creating photos that had the ingredients, and we were just getting creative and posting new things and creating different styles, different arrangements, so that they could be sharing this to social media and using these photos as product photos on their website and hero photos on the top of their website that draw more attention and make the product look more appealing. And then there's always just seasonal stuff that you can share during social media. I think we were celebrating a 7-year anniversary or something, so we threw some glitter and took some pictures. and just tried some different things. These were all easy images to create for me because I had their products, and it was just a matter of going outside, taking some pictures, and doing that on a regular basis so that they had new stuff. And we wanted it to look like content that would be social media content. We didn't want it to be too overproduced all the time. We wanted it to look a little bit more natural and organic, and that's easy stuff for us to create. A lot of times I was going to a thrift store with my wife to grab a couple of props or something to use in the different photos, and if you have an ongoing budget, then it's easy to factor in the costs for a few of those things. So migrating over to this retainer-based type of photography, which you can't do all at once. It's creating new relationships. We're going to talk about how to find some of those relationships today. But over time, you bring on a retainer, you bring on a couple of retainers, and then you have that photography work that keeps you busy, and then you have that income that you can expect, which keeps us all more comfortable, not worrying about where the next client's going to come from. Of course, I still do one-off photography jobs for different clients, but I'm not beholden to those types of relationships and finding new clients and going to events and networking and doing all of these things that take up a lot of time and often sometimes don't result in a lot of new business. So what we're going to talk about is a framework for retainers, and then we're going to look at how to actually identify some businesses that are in your area. We're going to talk about reaching out to those people and hopefully starting conversations that could lead to retainer type of business. So a retainer is a monthly, a monthly agreement where a business pays you a set amount for ongoing content creation. Retainers are very common in agency type work, like marketing agencies and other businesses like that. A lot of those businesses have retainer relationships with their clients. Retainer relationships allow you to have ongoing relationship with your client so that you get to know your client better. You get to know what they need better. When you shoot photos and they post and interact with those, it's a two-way communication. So you're finding out what works. Let's shoot more of that. People didn't respond too well to that, so let's try something new. And you're helping generate ideas. You're taking ideas from them. You're bringing them to life. And it's an ongoing relationship, whereas in a typical one-off photography job, the client typically tells us what they want. We might give a little bit of input, creative input, hopefully. If it's a good client, they give us that ability. And then we create the work for them, we send it to them, and we often don't hear from them until they need us again, and maybe not ever, because maybe they decide to go with someone else next time. So the retainer relationship is not a discount option for booking. We're not offering discounts to get people in retainers. A lot of times people think, well, I'm not going to get paid as much if I'm doing retainer work. And it depends on the relationship. If you can get ongoing business for a 6-month or a 1-year contract, and you know that every month you're going to get that set amount of work, it's easier for you to say, okay, here's a price that works for me and it works for my client, and we can, that might not be the same as booking me once, but I know I'm going to get that consistent business. If somebody's only going to book me once, I need to make that interaction, that piece of business worth it, because I might not get to see them again. If I know that I'm going to get to do work for them consistently over a period of time, 3 months, 6 months, a year, or whatnot, then I could provide a price point to them that is that fits within their budget and that gets them the type of work that they need. So local businesses that are in your area need social media content, even though social media is changing and it's harder for businesses to show up in people's social media feeds. Customers or potential customers still go looking at social media for businesses, and businesses need to have a good representation of what it is that they offer, whether it's services or products, a combination of both. They need to have a good representation of what it is that they offer. Their website also is still important, even though AI is changing the game and less people are visiting websites because AI and search engines are answering questions. AI is still crawling those websites, finding out information, and pulling in information into the AI platform. And that's going to be visual as well. It's already becoming more visual as AI tools are literally pulling images out of websites and displaying them with links to the website. And then people can go to the website if they need to. But AI is not going to be as text-based as it has been forever. It's going to bring in visual representations too, which means photo and video. And so businesses are going to need that type of content that lives on their website, that lives in the different tools or profiles or whatnot that AI will pull from to display. And when it comes to just seeing, they're not going to the website, they're just seeing options. What's going to stick out? I mean, it's going to be like trying to choose the best video to watch on YouTube. It's almost going to be what's the best thumbnail, what seems like is the right video for me based on the visual that I see. And so I don't see photography going anywhere. I don't see video creation going anywhere. People are going to use AI tools to generate some of this stuff, just like some people use stock photography. But there are going to be businesses that want realistic stuff that's created based on what it is that they're offering. No AI tool is going to be able to replicate a signature dish that a restaurant has. No AI tool is going to be able to replicate a client interaction within their offices. Those are only things that people like us, photographers, can create for these clients. And so businesses need that stuff, especially as we go into an age where we're talking to our phone, we're talking to AI, and it's pulling in information. The visuals need to really even do more work because the person might not yet be going to the website to book. And so visuals, I believe, are going to be even more important. Photography for products, for those who are selling in e-commerce or through social media platforms like Facebook Marketplace or TikTok Shop or whatever, they need product photos, and their iPhone will work for a period of time until they want to reach a larger base of customers, or they want to create some ads, or they want to look more professional and increase their pricing. This is when they start thinking, okay, I'm going to need to invest in something. I'm either going to need to learn photography and get a good camera, or I'm going to need to hire a photographer who can create this stuff for me. And one-off relationships will be seen as expensive and sometimes out of the reach of others, and they'll put all of their hopes and dreams in this one interaction with a photographer, whereas if it could be spread out over a longer period of time, then they can create what they need in that time, and then next month they're going to need something different. Next month they might need adjustments to that or more of something that's been working. It's an ongoing relationship, and that's what businesses need, is ongoing capturing of what it is that they are offering. So a retainer package can look like 1 half-day shoot per month, plus the delivery of 20 to 30 edited images, maybe 4 to 5 short video clips if you're a hybrid shooter and you shoot both, and that could be for their social media. They could also use it in newsletters and all of these other different things. And the way it works is you show up, it's something that's been planned out because it's in an agreement. Maybe it's a specific day, once a month, maybe it's every couple of weeks, whatever it is. You shoot and then you deliver, they post, and then that repeats monthly. Some clients might even want you to post post for them, and that could be an add-on. You can say, well, I'll run your social media. It's not that hard. You're already creating the good content. You can log in and post it for them. That's an upsell, something that you can offer for them beyond that if you wanted to add that as a ongoing service. So pricing it's a topic across photography and video creation, whether you're doing one-off jobs or you're doing retainers. Obviously, I had that $2,400 retainer, which was the real eye-opener for me. That was a big one. I didn't start out with a $2,400 retainer, but I see retainers as kind of fitting in different pricing tiers depending on what it is that you offer. A starter retainer, which could be something that any small business could probably factor into their budget, could be between $500 and $1,000. Of course, I'm talking about U.S. dollars, and so maybe a mid-range price in your currency. And a small business that has basic content needs could fit in between something like that. That could be maybe a handful of photos and a couple of video clips that keeps their social media fresh and active. A mid-tier could be the 1,000 to 2,000, which is more deliverables, more involvement on your part, maybe more strategy that you're helping them develop. You're doing a little bit of research, bringing them some ideas, showing them what's working for their type of market, and you're helping in that content strategy as well, and then creating that content for them. And then, ideally, it would be great to have a premium client or two that might be between the $2,000 to $3,000+ a month range. And that is very attainable. I mean, maybe not at first, because you need to be able to figure out what works for your market and what works for the customers that you're looking for. And that takes having a couple of smaller retainers to kind of get your feet wet and feel what works best for you and the way that you work and the way that you create. But having a couple of those larger retainers is very doable, and the majority of us, I live in a small area now in northwestern Montana. It's not a very big area. The city that I grew up in literally has more people than the side of the state that I live on. Like, the county that I grew up in has more people than the entire state of Montana. So I live in a small area now, and I'm able to get these types of clients in my area. So if you're in a larger, more dense area like where I grew up, it's going to be easy to find these bigger retainers because there's more businesses there, to choose from, and there's more businesses that need to compete with the other businesses that are in their industry. Where I'm at, there's less. There's still competition, and people still want to. Businesses still want to position themselves as a premium option, which means having premium content to market themselves with. But it's possible to have clients across all of these kind of 3 tiers of retainers, even if you live in a area that has a lower density of businesses. So you want to start with what feels right for you too. If you're a well-established photographer and you know that you can create this type of content for a premium tier right out of the gate, then and you have the portfolio to kind of showcase your work, you can really start at that level. But if you're more getting started and you don't quite have a portfolio yet that you could show, which might even include showing them work that's been posted to other social media accounts, your work that's on other businesses' websites, then you might start out at a lower tier. This is why businesses say yes to this. As a business owner, I've been a business owner since I was 19, and I'm 46 now, so I've been a business owner for a long time. There are a lot of things that I don't want to think about having to do that I know my business needs. And all businesses have this, especially if they're owner-operator businesses where the owner is doing the work that the customers are paying for. They don't have time to pull out a camera and take pictures of the process and all of this stuff. They're too busy working in their business. They don't have enough time to work on their business. And that's where hiring a photographer and paying them a small or medium-sized monthly rate to create that content for them really gets them to where they want to go without having to step away from what they're used to in their business. So they say yes because it gets them consistency without them having to think about it. They get professional content without managing a project every single time. That's one thing. If they hire a photographer once and that relationship was hard and it took a lot of work, and the photographer was always asking, "What do you need? What do you want? Do you think we have what we need?" and the photographer wasn't confident, then the business owner is thinking like, "Man, that was a lot of work. Like, I don't know if it paid off, and I got some photos, but I just don't have the time to do that again." If they don't have to think about that because you're handling that for them in this retainer relationship, then they get professional content without managing projects, and they don't have time to manage projects. They also build a relationship with someone who understands their business or their brand. And while you might not understand their business and their brand the first time you go and capture content for them, the ongoing relationship, you learn more about their business, you learn more about maybe their staff and their team or their product line or the services that they offer. And you're better able to figure out what is going to tell the story of what it is that they offer. I don't know if you're like me. I have done those types of shoots in the past where I go and I'm going to go capture what they asked me to capture, and I'm there shooting pictures, and I'm like, oh man, if I was able to do this instead, it would produce a much better image that would just be so much more interesting for the viewer, and it would tell more of the story of what they're doing here. But then, oops, the 1 hour session is over, and we just didn't have time for that. Those are things that you learn after that first visit, and having that ongoing relationship, a few photos back and forth, or a few emails back and forth, and the next visit you're creating even better content than the first time. So that's what that ongoing relationship provides. Whereas if they hired a different photographer next time, they're just starting the same challenging process over again, and hopefully getting different photos, but maybe getting exactly what they ask for again, and not necessarily what they need. So we're going to jump in to a live local marketing audit. We're going to look at businesses that are in the area, and we're going to figure out what to look for to identify which businesses need this type of content. So this is kind of an audit of our local area. I'm going to switch over. I'm not going to be able to see the chat because I'm going to switch over to a Google Maps screen here. Okay, so we are going to go into Google Maps, and you're going to do this too here in a couple of minutes, but this is my town here, and there's neighboring towns, and if I scroll out and go in different directions, this is what I'm talking about. I'm in a small area here. But if I type in restaurants and search this area for restaurants, there's a whole bunch of options here, and we start to see our results over here on the left-hand side. We've got everything from food trucks like the Corn Dog House to actual brick and mortar type of restaurants, and a lot of them don't have much for photos as far as what shows up in their Google business profile. The Google business profile has become one of the most important tools for a business. So especially if you're here in the US, I know Google is pretty big all over the place, but if there's a search engine that's more predominant in your market, there's likely going to be a map, there's likely going to be business profiles. And some of these business profiles don't represent the business too well. That's a photo of the front of the business, but this doesn't scream like I'm hungry right now. It doesn't. I'm not seeing photos of food. And so as I go into their profile here, and this is the only photo that profile has, is just this photo of the front of their business. And so that's an opportunity right there for this business to have someone come in and take photos of their food. Now, you could dig a little bit deeper, and if they have a website, you could visit their website, and there's a Facebook page here, so we could look at their Facebook page and see if they've got photos. They have a photo on their Facebook page. I wouldn't say that's a super attractive photo. Maybe it is. And, you know, their profile looks, or their Facebook page looks like a lot of other restaurant Facebook pages. There's, graphics that don't do their food justice. I'm not logged in here, so I'm not going to be able to scroll too far, but you get the idea. Like, a restaurant needs to be able to show off their food well. Like, if I look at this Fire and Dough, this is what I want to see, is a beautiful looking pizza as the first photo. This one's not bad. They've got a couple of corn dogs, but I wouldn't necessarily be able to tell that those are corn dogs. And they don't look that appetizing, kind of sticking up out of the corner of the photo to me. But they are a food truck, and so that food truck would be noticeable if you're familiar, if you drive around this town and you see it. So that might work a little bit. But they could probably use more photos of their food as well. And I'm not seeing a whole lot of options as far as their food. We've got their address. That's another problem with food trucks, is often they have to have their address associated somewhere. And their address shows up in their profile. So it's even more important that they have photos showing up. But when somebody's looking for a restaurant, whether they're in Google or they're in Yelp or one of the other programs that people would use, one of the other apps that people would use to find a restaurant, food photography is extremely important, and having great looking photos of the food, because that's what people want to see. Of course, if it's a different type of business, maybe food doesn't make the most sense. If it was a bar or something, or a coffee shop, you might have a photo of the inviting environment of the coffee shop. So we could look at coffee shops, because there's tons of coffee shops out there. That's another option where there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of coffee shops in this general area. So how are some going to stick out other than others? We've got we've got Coulter Coffee here. Nice looking photo of the front of their building, which is fine. We might also want to see some coffee photos. I do know that they have some photos there. We've got the front of the building here as well. But we want to be able to see more images. And when people click so many of these businesses, even a large one like this, we just have one or two photos showing up, and we want to have a lot more photos. When a business goes into their Google business listing, if you've ever edited one of these for your own business, you know that there are lots of different categories of photos that can be updated with different types of photos for your business. There are also areas in the Google business profile to post updates. And Google uses all of these. And AI mode in Google, when somebody asks a question and they're using either AI mode or AI overviews within Google, it's pulling heavily from this information, not just from the information in the profile, but also from the reviews and the photos and the different things that are shared. And so the Google business profiles and the profiles on other websites that offer this type of listing are becoming more and more important, because different apps and services are using this data to pull things in. So I want you now to be thinking about businesses that you drive by often that are in your area. These even could be businesses that you frequent, businesses that you visit often that you might already have a relationship with. I would say write down 10, just as I'm talking here a little bit more. If you can think of a business, whether it's a restaurant or a coffee shop or an auto repair shop, any type of business that you have a little bit of familiarity with, choose those businesses, write them down, because we're going to go through some of those. We could even look at some of them live together if you'd like. But we're going to talk about how to reach out to those businesses and kind of brainstorm on what type of services you can offer that specific type of business. Some businesses, they need photography and they need some video here and there, but they might not need it monthly. Your auto repair shop might not necessarily, unless they're real go-getters and they really want to be active on social media, might not need a monthly retainer for content. That might be more of like a once or twice a year visit for you as a photographer. But restaurants and coffee shops and other types of businesses that have a high amount of customer traffic every single day, those are the businesses that are easily disrupted by another business down the road or a new business coming in. And so if their social media, if their Google business profile, if their website gets stale, then people aren't seeing new things happening. They might not go in there every single day or even every single week. So they're not exposed to the new things that are happening in those businesses. But if they're sharing content on their social media, their Google business profile, their website, their Yelp, whatever other social media accounts that they use, then people are exposed to the new things that are happening. And this is one of the things that businesses fail at, I think, is that they assume because they've got a new product or a service that their customers are going to find out about it. But unless people are coming into their business all the time and seeing those new offerings, they're not going to know. And they might not know that they can go to the business that they've already worked with. They might think that they need to go to another business, or they might go to Google and do a search and find a business that that Google shows in the rankings for whatever that product or service is that they're looking for, when the business that they already had the relationship with also offers that. So it's also about communication. Photography and video is very much about communication. So we've got a question: when clients post your photos, do you typically ask for a photo credit? Now, that's a good question. I don't ask for a photo credit when they're paying me. They're paying me to create content for them. And so that content, and it's part of my agreement too, that once the agreement is paid, that they have the rights to use that content. Now, when we create as photographers, when I take a picture, there's, just by the law here in the United States anyways, the copyright of that photo becomes my copyright. Like, I don't really have to do anything. Yeah, I can apply the copyright in the metadata of the file, which of course could be stripped out or whatever. But if somebody was to use a photo that I took against my without my approval, as long as I could prove it's my photo, I could get it pulled down or whatever. I could, do whatever. But if somebody pays me and they're in an agreement with me, I'm creating content and giving them the rights to use that content. And so I don't expect a credit unless there's some sort of mutual benefit there. If I'm doing the work to hopefully get them as a client, so maybe I'm doing a couple of spec photos for them for free, then for sure I would say, like, hey, I captured this stuff. I would love if you would use it. Just tag my social media or whatnot. Give me a photo credit, because then there's that reciprocity of I gave you something, you give me something in return. But if they're paying for the service, then I would recommend that you give them that ability to decide. Like, they don't have to do that. And you said, interesting to learn what has been some of your own experiences that really did not work and what you learned from. Have you heard back from clients telling you how their business changed after they got some professional photos? Those two I'm going to save for the end. We'll do Q&A at the end. We're going to jump through kind of how to score, and we talked about this a little bit as we were looking at those Google business profiles, how to score the opportunity, because not every business is going to be a good opportunity for outreach. So if we go back and we look at the Google business profiles, that pizza spot that had a really nice photo might not be as good of an opportunity as a pizza spot that doesn't have any photos of their actual pizza. Now, in a business listing like this, there will be customers that have shared photos that will show up in the results. And so customers that have written reviews and shared photos, those photos will show up typically in a Google business review, especially if somebody goes and starts to look at the reviews, which, let's see, I'm seeing a limited version. I think I need to sign in here. This, for some reason, it didn't sign me in. So I'm going to make sure that I'm signed in here, just so that I'm seeing the full results from Google. So let's go back to restaurants. make sure that we're seeing everything. All right, here we go. So if I click on one of these restaurants and I scroll down, some of them have menu highlights, which these are uploaded by the business. Some of them have photos that they've shared, and then customers will often put photos of their own in there as well. Customer photos don't always end up being the highest quality. They definitely are good for a business because that customer proof is what people are looking for when they're trying to decide if this is a place that I would want to go to. But not all businesses have a lot of photo options available and good photos of their food. And so when you are looking at businesses, you want to look for businesses that don't have a lot of options. So when you go and look, let's just look at this one here. They've got, some photos of their food. This looks like this is a customer photo. You can tell because it shows the person's name here, as opposed to not having a person's name linked with the photo. Typically will mean that the photo was taken by the business owner. You can see here's another person. So lots of photos by customers. Some of them are not too bad, some of these photos. But a business wouldn't want to use that on their menu section. A business wouldn't want to use this photo if they were offering DoorDash delivery or one of those, delivery services for food. This one might be okay. This is a customer photo though, so it would come into question as to whether or not they could even use a customer photo. They'd have to get permission. It would be much easier for a photographer to come in and capture images of all of their menu items. And so that's another big thing, especially for restaurants, is people ordering using the different apps like DoorDash or whatever. There's several different ones, and they need good photos of their food in order to build out that menu, especially when you're in an app like DoorDash or whatnot. And come on, I should have had this one pulled up already, but let's just type in my city and state here and see what comes up. If you've ever ordered delivery from one of these places, some restaurants have really nice product photography or food photography. Other ones, not so much. It's obvious that they took the photos with a phone or something like that. This chicken tender basket right here doesn't necessarily look super appealing. So there's opportunities here for outreach, and these are the types of businesses that you would want to reach out to. And of course, we're heavily talking about food here, just because that is a business that is ever changing as new items are being added to menus and things are changing, new platforms that they're wanting to get on and stuff like that. There's lots of opportunity with foods, but there's also lots of opportunities with service-based businesses as well that have their employees out in the field working, whether it's home repairs or different things like that. The human aspect of things, people wanting to know who it is that they're that's going to be showing up to their house to work on a project. A lot of businesses, service-based businesses, use stock photography, and that's not a realistic expectation for most of the businesses. Most of those stock photos are a little too polished and perfect. People want to see who's coming to their house. So I'm going to jump ahead because I could talk about all of the possible opportunities there for forever. What you want to do first is look for businesses that don't have what they need to succeed, because those are going to be your easy opportunities. They probably already know that their photos fall short compared to some of their competitors, and you don't need to approach them kind of, making them feel bad because their photos aren't there. You want to approach them as this is a great opportunity for them to show the quality of their product. And you can mention things like, hey, I've noticed that you haven't posted on social media in a while. I know it can be really hard to run a business and take pictures and post to social media and all of that stuff. What you want to do is you want to identify the struggle that they're feeling, and not make it overly apparent that they're doing something wrong. They probably already know that because we live in an age where everything that's polished is in our feeds all day long. So we know what we should be doing. We just often can't because of time constraints or not knowing how to do it, or not having the tools to do it. And that's where our opportunity is as photographers. So questions that you should be asking yourself when you're looking at their profiles, or their websites, or their DoorDash profile, or their Google Business profile, or whatever it is are they posting consistency? Are they posting consistently? Is the quality of the content good? Because it's not always is. Are they posting at all? Some might not be posting at all. It might have been 3 months or 6 months or a year ago. And if people see that they haven't seen any new posts in a long time, they might wonder if that business is still around, or they might wonder if the quality of their product or service is as good as it was a year ago, the last time that they posted. Businesses need to minimize all of those potential questions that a customer could be asking that would lead them to go somewhere else. And then, of course, their website. If their website has outdated photos too, that's another opportunity. So a high opportunity is a business with a inconsistent, low quality content that they're posting. They've been established for a while, so they probably have a budget because they're not a business that just launched in the last couple of weeks where they've had to put out a ton of money, and photography might not have been in their budget. Maybe they're a business that's been around for a couple of years or a number of years at least. They have a decent location. Maybe they have a few employees. That's a high opportunity because you know that $500 or $1,000 or whatever a month probably would fit in their budget, if they could bring in new customers because of this content that they're putting out. A medium opportunity would be a business that is posting, but the content is mediocre. It's not high-end content. It's definitely not what people would expect from that business. And you might figure that out by looking at their menu or looking at the services or products that they offer. And if they're higher ticket items or more expensive restaurant or more expensive services, then it's an opportunity, because if they're using lower or mediocre quality photos and videos to show off their products and services, then there's a disconnect between the premium offering that they have and the way that they're marketing that offering. A low opportunity would be a business that has great content and they're posting frequently, or perhaps is too small of a business to probably be able to afford a retainer like that. $500 a month would be a big ask for them. That probably wouldn't be a good opportunity. So probably while you've been talking, I did ask you to start thinking about some businesses earlier that might work out. I would say take a few minutes to maybe drop a couple of them. If there's one that you found and you're like, let's look at it together, drop it in the chat, and I'll look it up, and we'll see if we can identify. An opportunity there. So I'm gonna pull the chat back up there. If there's a business that you'd like to look at, and also be doing a little bit of your work, have Google Maps pulled up, have whatever service it is that you use for finding businesses. Let's see, oil-filled companies are all over my area in Alberta. So oil-filled companies, that's an interesting one. What product or service would an oil field company? Is that more of a business to business, probably, where someone or a company that buys oil, is choosing between different suppliers. I'm not super familiar with that as an industry. Parts, machinery, drilling, and all sorts of related. Okay, so there's a lot of industry around oil field, and there's repair companies, service companies, stuff like that. That's where a oil field company obviously needs to be up and running all of the time. Downtime is a huge issue, and so if there's a business that provides service and support to those types of companies, they need a website that communicates that. They need to show up well in Google with when somebody searches for that type of business. There needs to be photos that represent the services that are offered. And so I think there's opportunities there too. Sporting goods is a good medium-sized business. Yeah, there's usually sporting good companies in town. Sporting good companies also are heavily challenged by Amazon and online sellers. And so a sporting goods company that really does a good job of showing how rooted it is in their community and is huge. And so if a sporting goods company sells sporting goods products to people who play sports, probably lots of youth sports and stuff like that, there's opportunities on behalf of the sporting goods company to go to these different events and games and stuff that are happening, to capture photos, maybe get permission, little waiver to sign off, like, hey, I captured this photo, I'll give you a copy of the photo, but Joe's Sporting Goods would love to share it on social media. I'll give you the photo if you sign this waiver. They sign the waiver, the parent does, or the person, legal guardian does. And then you go back to the sporting goods event store and you're like, hey, I've got, 5 different soccer players, signed waivers, photos that they can share on social media, and then they can say what items that person might have been wearing, a jersey or some cleats or something like that. I think there's lots of opportunities there. And in that aspect, you're doing a service that sporting goods company couldn't do. They're selling sporting goods and running that business. They likely can't go around to all of these sporting events and take pictures and then use those pictures to show their involvement in the local community, which is important because they want people in that community to buy products from them instead of going on to online websites like Amazon and stuff like that. So yeah, that's a great, Holden, that's a great option there. Restaurants and live in a tourist area. Yeah, I live in a tourist area as well, with Glacier National Park being about a 40-minute drive from me. So having lots of photos, new things all the time, and having the freshest content is hugely important. So yeah, there's just lots of opportunities out there. And if you think about it from the perspective of how am I as a photographer bridging the gap between this business getting the content, or this business existing and marketing themselves well and getting the content that they need. Sometimes it's as easy, if it's a restaurant, as saying, hey, I'm going to come in and we're going to take some photos of dishes as they come off and go out to the customer as they order them. Or they're going to cook all these dishes and you're going to take nice stylistic photos. Sometimes it is going and handling the session. Other times it's identifying the gap, like with the sporting goods example of, like, how do we show that our sporting goods store is involved in the community and supports the athletes and sports fanatics of our local community? It's hard for them to do that. You become the bridge that creates the content there. So those are all good ideas and opportunities there. So we're probably going to go over a few minutes here, because we're about 4 minutes away from being here for an hour. So if you have to jump off, know that that's okay. You'll have the recorded option to come back and watch this later, and you can come back and watch the ending portion here. Before we go into Q&A, I want you to just consider, I think the biggest thing is just consider what the utility is that you can offer as the photographer. Often with photography, we think, okay, we're going to bring our camera, we're going to show up, and we're going to take pictures or if we have a studio or we have, a location, people come to us. We often think of this like, transactional experience as a photographer or as someone creating video content or someone, hybrid doing photo and video. Most of the challenges that these businesses are going to have is being able to carry this out on their own or orchestrate it on their own. And so if you figure out that piece, what is the value that you can add to make sure that this happens for them so that they get the consistent content that they're looking for and they don't have to say no to the things that are more pressing to them in the moment, that is where the value of the retainer is going to come in. And if it's a $500 a month retainer and you know that you could probably give them maybe 3 hours for that $500 or 2 hours or something, depending on how you want to price yourself, you know that you're not going to be able to give them 2 to 3 hours of on the boots on the ground photography. Maybe 30 minutes of that is going to be on identifying opportunities for capturing the photos. Maybe another 15 minutes of that is going to be organizing the things that need to take place so that you can capture the photos. And maybe the leftover is the hour and a half. It's the execution of the project. And so you're thinking about your services a little bit like a marketing agency would. You're not just delivering them photos, because if it was that easy, they just hire a photographer when they needed one and they'd get exactly what they wanted. But businesses aren't doing that because it's not that easy. And us as photographers just have to think differently about the service that we're providing. That we're not only just providing the deliverables, which is the photos or the video clips, but we're also providing the connection between what it is that they need and those photos. That might mean scheduling with some employees. That might mean scheduling with some past customers to get some photos for a testimonials page. That might be orchestrating those sporting events, going to those sporting events to capture pictures for that sports store. Whatever it is, they probably don't have the time to orchestrate all of that. If you can factor that into the agreement and produce what they need, it's going to be a no-brainer for them to stay in an agreement with you over the long haul. So we are going to jump into just talking about how to make contact with these businesses. If it's a local business, and most likely it's going to be, the best approach is to seriously walk into that business and have some photos to show somebody and have a conversation with someone that you can identify as a manager or a business owner. Sometimes that might not be too easy because they're busy doing work. You definitely don't want to interrupt them to have them look at your photos. But use discernment there. If you go into the business and there's an opportunity for you, you could even ask and say, hey, I was wondering if the business owner or if the store manager or manager on site is available. I just want to show them some work that I've done. And usually an employee will go get the manager. For me, that would look like me saying, hi, I'm Jared Hill. I'm a photographer. I notice your social media hasn't really been updated that often, but you guys are an awesome business that's very tied to the community. I'm wondering if I can help you create content that would help you stand out in that way. Can I show you a few examples of what I've done for other businesses? And if they say yes, I show them some examples, and then they're like, well, it sounds expensive or whatever. There's that song and dance that we've all been a part of in conversations before, but the ice has been broken, and there's an opportunity for you to see if it's an opportunity to jump into a conversation about a monthly agreement, or maybe it's not, and you say, is there an opportunity for me to capture a couple of photos for you so that we can see if something like this would work out for you? And that's where over time you work on that kind of discernment of, does the potential client see the need already and they know that there's a need? Because if they see the need and understand the need, they're probably more primed to pay for it up front. Whereas if there's a business that's unsure and they don't know if it's going to work and they don't know if it's going to be cost effective, but you know that it could be a good fit, that's where you might lean in and say, well, I'd love to take a couple of photos for you. And then we can see if this is something that you'd be interested in doing ongoing. If walking in and talking to somebody directly is a little bit too bold, you could send them a DM through social media or an email with a few examples of your work, something that you've created. Or if it's a type of business that you don't have any past work for, you can kind of mock something up, come up with something that gives them a general idea of what they could expect. The main key is to be specific about the thing that you noticed. I saw your Instagram hasn't been updated. I saw that your Google Business profile doesn't have any recent photos. I saw that you're on DoorDash and your the photos of your menu items, could be refreshed or something. I mean, you obviously don't want to attack what they're doing, but you want to acknowledge the opportunity that's available. And it's better to speak to what you've noticed than to say just I can help you with your photos, because that's not helping them understand and recognize a problem that they might have. We want to help them recognize the problem that they might have and how we can solve that problem, and not just say like, oh, I'm a photographer and I could take pictures for you, because then that's not giving them an idea of how we can help. It's not painting a picture in their mind, unless we get lucky because maybe they already knew this. I wouldn't lead with a $2,000 a month retainer. I would lead with a trial of some sort. If you feel like they could pay for this service right out of the gate, start with a trial. If it's a business that you really want to work with, that you know there's potential there, but they might not pay for this out of the gate, you could say, let me do one shoot for you. I'll create a week's worth of social media content off of this one, like 15-30 minutes of your time. And if you love it, we can talk about doing this monthly. It removes all the risk for them. It also gives you a portfolio that you can use, because if it doesn't work out with them, you can take those photos that you created and go over to their competitors and offer your services to them. Once they see what professional photography does for the engagement on the platforms that they're using, I think the retainer conversation is just going to happen naturally. So one of the things that I want all of you to do, if you're really going to take trying to create some retainers for your business serious, is to pick one business from the list of businesses that you've been thinking about, or perhaps that you wrote down or that you identified, and reach out to one of them. If it's too much to go physically to that business and talk in person, which I get it could be, send an email. It's not a cold email, because you did the work to identify a need that they have. A cold email is me sending you an email because I had access to your email address and I did no homework up front. A slightly warmer email, which is a slightly warmer potential lead, is an email that arrives in the inbox with something that you've noticed that maybe the business is missing, like it's been a while that their social media has been since it's been updated, or a variety of those different things, and how you can solve that problem and create that on their behalf. If you're like me, you'll overthink this. If you're like me, you'll want to build out a page on your website for retainers and all of this stuff. If you're like me, you'll want a pricing guide designed, and you'll want all of these things done up front. From my experiences, I get very little bookings from those types of things that I have up. The bookings that I get, the relationships that I end up having, or the ongoing relationships that I end up having, are from interactions that I've had with others. And so there's a time and a place for creating those things and having those things up on our website. But if we put all of the work into those things, we're not really any closer to getting that first retainer client. So that's me admitting exactly what I do and have done many times. So I just recommend jumping straight to it. You're not going to have somebody go to your website and say, "Oh, that's funny, I didn't see retainers on your website." Nobody's going to do that. Nobody's going to go and kind of back search everything that you came to them with. And if they do, you could say, "Oh, well, this is something new that I'm introducing," but it's not likely that that's going to happen. And after you have this established, after you have a few clients, yeah, you can add that to your website. You can come up with a pricing guide or something that makes sense, or you can, do the marketing things that we need to do as photographers. But don't let that be a stumbling block to getting started, because if you're like me, you front load with all of those things and then you don't have enough energy to follow through on everything else, or you've spent so much time working on those things, you would then have to go and work on other things that are actually making money. Let's work on making money out of the gate and then do the things that we need to do for our own marketing a bit later. So that's my last piece of advice there. And now we're going to do a Q&A session. And I apologize for just being on fast forward mode here and yapping the entire time. I think I was a little aggressive or hopeful in how much I wanted to talk about in a 1 hour period, and we're now almost 10 minutes over. So let me jump up. If you have questions, ask them. I'm going to jump back up to a couple of the earlier questions that were posted in here. Interesting to know about what I learned in experiences that didn't work out. Okay, so experiences that didn't work out. That's kind of a hard one because I haven't had any retainer relationships that didn't work out. I have had one-off sessions that didn't work out because what was described to me as their needs weren't exactly what it is that they were looking for. And I went and took the pictures that they wanted. I captured exactly what they wanted, but it wasn't exactly what they're looking for because they weren't able to communicate to that to me well, and it wasn't part of the process of getting that job. Part of the process of a retainer and knowing that you're going to have business for a certain amount of months, because usually in retainers, I'm saying let's do this we'll trial for a month, and then after that, I'm asking for a 3-month commitment or a 6-month commitment or a 1-year commitment at that price point. And so they're wanting to lock in because they want the consistent work at a certain price. And in that now relationship that I have with that business, I'm able to better understand what it is that they're looking for. We have a discovery call. We have opportunities for feedback. And of course, I'm interacting with them as I'm capturing the content as well. And so there's so many opportunities to learn about what it is that they need and make the adjustments either on the fly or for the next session that we're going to have to prevent that. Sometimes those relationships come to an end because of budgetary constraints, or maybe they're not seeing the interaction. Because I mean, if all they're doing is posting to social media and not engaging on social media, then after a while they might get a little bit of fatigue, and the agreement doesn't continue. And so that's where part of the conversation comes in, as how to help them succeed on social media, because just posting is only going to get them fresh content. It's not going to be engaging with people. So there's always those things, and it's understanding what it is that they want to do with it, and trying to figure out what's the best way that the content that I'm creating can be successful for them. Depending on your level of knowledge and understanding of the platforms that they're going to use, you might be able to provide insight there, and you might not be able to. But you have your own experiences and probably have a little bit of knowledge, and could even go to ChatGPT and ask, what are some best practices or I'm a photographer, I created this content for this type of business. What are some best practices that they can use to get the most engagement out of this content? And then you could just literally give them those 5 things that ChatGPT came up with. And maybe in turn they say, well, those are actually awesome. Could you do that for me? And you say yes, it's an add-on, it's an extra $100 a month or whatever it is. I have heard back from clients as far as their, how their photos affected their business. In those businesses that really needed good photos because their photos were not good, it made a huge difference because people now see the quality of their product, the quality of their service as being on par with what their expectations were. Where before, the customer's expectations were higher than what they were seeing. And that's what we want to do, is bridge that gap. Whatever the customer's expectations are, we want their photography, their video, and whatever it is that they're putting out there on the internet to meet those expectations, or maybe even exceed it a little bit. Because if it exceeds it, then the customer really feels like they're getting a good product or service. Hopefully, the deliverable on the business's end matches the expectations of the photos that we create. But that's on the business to live up to the quality of the product or service that they deliver. Aldana says, unique situation. I'm just going to read through this kind of quickly here. These days I have an artist studio. I teach. Yeah, that's that community aspect that, like we were talking about with the sports store. Community is huge, and I listen to a lot of podcasts, and my social media feeds are often like marketing talk and stuff like that. And we're so far into social media where everything is curated and too good to be true. The pendulum is starting to swing back towards real experiences and real lived expectations, and seeing and being connected with what's in our local areas. And I think there's a real opportunity there to be able to capture and bridge that gap of what's taking place in a community. Maybe that's through a business, maybe that's through an organization or whatever it is, and being able to showcase that. They're the business or organization in the community, and if they want to grow and they want to showcase what's taking place in their community, they need good photos to do that. And that's one less thing for them to have to worry about, is showcasing their artists, showcasing their exhibitions and all these different things. If there's a photographer that they have, and that's more of like how I handled the conferences. It's certain events and stuff like that. How many events do you want me to come to in a year or in a month? We work out a price that makes sense. Maybe I don't need to come to everything, but I come to, 2 or 3 a month. You let me know which ones those are, and we have a fixed agreed upon price, so that way it's consistent and you know what you're going to get. And so it's figuring out how that retainer model is going to work for that type of deliverables and needs that business have. You're already on site, which is huge. I mean, I was, with the example of that conference, I was already on site because I was at this conference. I was there to learn. They gave me a ticket to the conference for free because I reached out to them and said, hey, I'll take some pictures. But then I wouldn't have needed to go back to the conference 6 months later. They wanted more photography. They wanted more say in what I was capturing. And so that's when the agreement to be paid came into the picture. And though it wasn't a retainer, at the beginning of the year, we would sit down and say, okay, here's your events for the year. Let's get those booked, because I was traveling to them. I needed to book travel and all of that stuff. So it was not a retainer, but it was expected work for the year, which is, I guess, retainer-esque. And so you could even... that type of relationship could look more like that. It's not necessarily a retainer, but it's an expected amount of events that you're going to go to produce an expected amount of work over a period of time. And that's what bridges the gap from, the one-off jobs that we often get. Holden says, cold calls are the hardest part of any business. Yes, it is. Cold calls are not comfortable. If you're like me as a photographer with the personality that I have, I prefer to be behind the camera. I like being back there. It's much safer. It's more fun back there. I'm not always super outgoing, unless I'm safe in my room filming, or it's much harder for me to just walk into a business and start a conversation. It definitely is hard. It's much easier for me to send an email or send a DM and then follow up with them that way and have at least that icebreaker there before I go and meet with them. So do what works best and is most comfortable for your personality, and be willing to stretch yourself a little bit. After you have a few successful conversations, you'll feel more confident in just jumping straight in and going right into a business and talking, because you've successfully done it over here. You feel more comfortable and confident, and you know that you can go in and have these conversations because you've done them before. So it just gets more comfortable and more. You'll have more confidence after having done it more. But it's not as much a cold call, as I said before, if you do a little bit of homework on the back end and you're letting them know that you spent the time to look at their social media, to look at their website, to look at their DoorDash or look at their Google business profile, and have some ideas for them. Now their ears are perked. They're like, oh, okay, this isn't just somebody saying, hire me, I'm a photographer. This is somebody saying, I took the time to identify things that would benefit your business, and I can fill that need for you. Let's see, in terms of a written retainer, would you be able to share an example via email? I will most definitely do that. I will share a proposal. Typically, I do a proposal for the retainers that show them everything they're going to get. And then from that proposal, I then have an agreement. And the agreement is like we would have for any photography agreement. It's what they pay, what they get, how they can use their images, and all of that stuff. So I'll definitely follow up with a retainer proposal. Thank you, Foxtail Media, on the appreciation. Never enough time, for sure. And where would good price guides for photography and videography projects with editing, post-productions, and drones? I feel like I have much on the go with not enough structure. That is hard, is coming up with clearly defined pricing, and that's always been hard for me, is how do I have package prices when everybody's needs are different? And that was always a struggle. I even still have some on my website for things like real estate photography and other things where, like, I don't want to be stuck in long conversations with people for a one-off job. It's like, either pick my package. If that doesn't work for you, then sorry. But the retainers are probably going to be a little bit different for everybody. And realistically, there's only so many retainers that you can handle at a time. So I don't think it makes as much sense to price them all the same, because the needs of each of those businesses are going to be slightly different. And you want this to be something that's customized for their business. And like I said, there's only so many of them that you can take on. So them going and just saying, do I pick package A, B, or C? We don't need to make it necessarily that easy or that, that hands off of a experience up front, because we could probably only handle a certain amount of retainers every single month. And if we want that ongoing relationship, there will come a point in time where they probably ask how much, and you can say, okay, well, photography would be maybe around this price, photo with some video would be around this price, drone add-on for around this. And that's where the proposal comes into play, really understanding what their needs are and then putting together a plan for them. And in my proposals, I usually have options A, B, and C, but those options are specific to that client's needs. They're not something that I have on my website. The reason that I give them 3 options in the proposal is because usually they see the first option and they're like, well, maybe that's not enough. Maybe the second option works well. Maybe the third option's too expensive. The third option helps them see what the possibilities are. I really hope that they go with the middle one. So it's kind of like going to Wendy's and ordering a burger. You can get single, double, or triple patty. Like, who buys a triple patty burger like I have before? But it's not something that I'm going to get all the time. But one patty seems like such a small amount of patties when there's an option for 3 patties. Maybe 2 is just right. So that's why I typically will do a B, and C option in the proposal. And that's a custom A, B, and C option based on the needs of that potential client or customer. I guess I call customers like one-off jobs. I call clients the people that are in the businesses that are in retainers that I get to work with ongoing. You have relationships with clients. Not that you don't with customers, but anyways, semantics. So if anybody else has any questions, I would love to answer any more questions. If we don't have any more questions, then I think we can end here in a second. But like I said, I will send you a link to this video in case you want to revisit a part of it. I'll send you the Gemini AI notes that will be generated, and then I will send you a copy of my proposal. I'm going to remove the customer's name and any private information in there, but you'll essentially have that, and you can copy it. You can make it your own. You can feed it into AI and say, hey, generate for me my own version. You can use it as you would like. And of course, at any time, if you have other questions, you can shoot me an email, reach out on social media, and I'll do my best to answer them. But thanks for spending like almost an hour and a half with me. I hope it was useful time. I hope that you're able to go and generate a couple of these retainer relationships. And I would love to know how it went. If you do this, and I hope you do, shoot me a message. Say, hey, I landed my first retainer client, or I went and talked to like 6 businesses and I haven't gotten one to bite yet. Like, don't do it alone. Let's interact a little bit. I think it would be super useful. But thanks again. You guys are right here. That's why I keep looking over here. Appreciate all of you for being here and spending time with me. Thankful for that, and hope to be able to connect with y'all soon in another way. But have a great day, and go out there and get yourself a retainer client, or hopefully 5 or 6. All right? Have a good day.